Hi, I'm Jennifer Shaw-Sweet. I am I've just changed jobs, Global Practice Principal at the B2B Institute at LinkedIn. And I'm thrilled to be here as a total surprise. I wasn't going to be here yesterday. Today I am. I get to meet all of you. Hey, I won at life. Yes! So great to meet all of you. We're going to go through an unexpected presentation. I didn't know I was going to be presenting this until 9 o'clock this morning when it came through to me as a piece of research that we have just launched, and I'm allowed to present it to you as of today. Woohoo! So, I think it's probably one of the pieces of research that we've done that is most exciting and interesting for people in product marketing. And it was actually inspired initially by a number of conversations with our own product marketers at LinkedIn. And in particular, we were really interested in how do we make sure that we're not just easy to mind, easy to think of in a buying situation, but also connecting that through as a journey for a future customer to be easy to mind. This research was done by my colleague Kate Newstead. Give her a follow on LinkedIn. She's very nice. Unsurprisingly, I am also on LinkedIn. And if we don't have time for questions at the end of the 41 slides I'm going to present in the next 25 minutes, then please do connect with me. And I'm really happy to always answer questions on LinkedIn. So, what are we going to talk about today? In particular, we're going to talk about the key areas of being easy to mind and making sure that your marketing budget goes further. So, part of that is addressing gaps in our channel presence, and in particular, this is where we see the most customers getting lost. So, around 86% of B2B journeys start with a day one list, but what we see with that day one list is lots of people getting lost after people think of a brand. A lot of people don't think of your brand in a day one list. The average number of the average number of suppliers that are thought of in a day one list when someone literally has a problem in their business that they need to fix and they need to think of what brands could solve it. The average number is between 2.4 and 3.4 brands that people think of. Now, that means a lot of brands aren't thought of. In most categories, there are more than 2.4 and 3.4 brands. And so making sure that we're thought of means that we end up with the revenue that's on the table, but making sure that people then find us is key. Now, standing out in very competitive, and we've got some very competitive categories at the moment, sales environments mean that we get more conversations with our customers, with a future buyer, and we also need to bring a lot more discipline to how we organize our portfolios. And I've added slides, I'm so sorry, at the end of this, because this is absolutely fundamental when we look at the role of LLMs in the customer journey, which is increasing. It's currently between about 7% of buyer journeys. It's listed by Forrester to be likely to affect in the next 5 years about 60% of buyer journeys. So how we navigate LLMs is no longer one of those things where small companies get to hack the system. It actually starts to become a hygiene factor in a buying journey. So there are two sides in brand growth. We've got to think about mental availability, being easy to mind, being on that day one list, and we need to think about physical availability and being easy to find. And if we get both of those right, we get more money, which means we can all have a conservatory. Some brands are really good at this, and Oreo is a classic example, and they spend a lot of money getting the famous Post Malone. Not on my Spotify list, to be honest. I'm probably more Wu-Tang. But getting Post Malone to support Oreo. So they did this lovely ad for, I think this is the Super Bowl, and then they connected this beautifully through to all of their sales channels. We can have a little play of the video. Maybe it will play, maybe it won't. Who cares? Thanks, Post. Oh, the clicker's not working now. Oh, there we go. There we go. So what's key about this, actually and far more interesting, can I jump down? I'm going to. So what's key about this and what's most interesting is the fact that all of this very fancy, glossy brand spend connected to this very dirgy trade spend, the trade connection. And I'm really interested in trade connections because I think they're the hidden B2B and B2C. And around 50% of the money that we spend in marketing, actually in B2C, goes on to trade relationships and getting listed in trade. So it's really important that we think about how our big brand stuff and our beautiful product stuff and our insight about our customers also links through through to how we start to gain favourability within trade connections, not just so that we're not delisted, but actually so that we're proactively expected by customers. Stephen King in the 1970s, not the horror writer, the marketing professor. So Stephen King in the 1970s wrote extensively about the sole purpose of B2C advertising being about being listed in trade. Now, not being there is frustrating. It's as frustrating as getting to the cookie jar and finding it to be empty. And here is the embarrassing parable that I meant to read out with this presentation. No cookie in the cookie jar, the ad work, attention achieved, the jar's empty, nothing received. You built demand, they came to buy, but your product wasn't there altogether. Oh my. So someone read a lot of Dr. Seuss to their children while writing this. Physical availability in B2B is probably one of the most overlooked factors in how we navigate customer sales journeys, and in particular is overlooked because what we see in categories where there is huge amounts of technical expectation or complex customer journeys or expertise reliant categories, we see it. But we also see the same problem in the impulse category. Physical availability becomes one of those things where there's a reliant on the trade presence rather than the journey to trade. We see this confusion coming through in lots of cases. We've now produced, and I recommend that you download the 55 to 60 page, depending on if they add in the LLM bit, report on this that we produced with the Ehrenberg Bass Institute and in partnership with some really big thinkers in the industry. So we've got Tom Stein, lovely James Hankins from Visor, Devang, our own VP of Marketing at LinkedIn, Alejandro, Derek and Kate from my own team, and then from the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, Magda and Jenny. All of these people have put together not just this research, but also a number of articles that you'll be seeing on LinkedIn, just looking into how we understand the easy-to-findness and the buyability of our customers. But if we accumulate all of that knowledge into three spaces, what we're looking at is ensuring that we have better presence, prominence, and portfolio of our category and of our products. In particular, what we need to see is presence. Is your brand actually showing up in the places where buying is going to happen? That's not just presence at things like conferences or presence in sales engagements with your sales teams, but it's also a general level of presence in the marketplace and mental presence too. We also need to think about prominence, really sort of health checking the consistency of our prominence and our standout with our distinctive brand assets. And we also need to think about portfolio. How are we helping to navigate what we provide in order for it to be more relevant to more people at more times of need? And using insight to be able to inform this prominence. Now, working with Frank Cooper, who's the CMO of Visa, what he said is that he needs to put this in the context of our culture. We need to put our brands in the context of who we are and what we are within the world. And so what he's saying is for today's world, marketers need to build both commercial and cultural fluency. It's not just about being sort of really current and prominent on Spotify. It's also about being current and prominent in understanding where our brands, where our products fit into the environment or the work and the needs of our consumers and our buyers. So it's not just about mental availability or physical availability, but it's about that navigation of how we work them together. And we have quite a current example of this on LinkedIn, where we're looking at the proof points that come from Sales Navigator to demonstrate the impact of marketing. So those people exposed to marketing very early in the journey, whether it's brand or product marketing, at very early stages, up to a 18-month event horizon, we're able to then see how those people are coming through and landing within a sales journey on Sales Navigator in real time. Now that means we're able to show the long-term impact that marketing has been able to make on the outcomes, the sales outcomes, and we can see a level of favorability that's been created by marketing in sales. But it also means that within that conversation, salespeople are advocating for more marketing, for more expenditure on marketing. And those results show up to 4 times more favorability, 4 times better conversations around pricing, around the speed of sale, the friction of sale. Understanding that we have to find channels that help us find those people, using channels that are most proximate to those people is really key. And in particular, as we've been working with this is the 95-5 rule, which we developed also with the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, what we look at is within those sales journey, how we're able to influence more out-of-market buyers. Because, she hops down again, this is more fun then. Because what we know is that the out-of-market buyers here, they haven't decided which brands they're going to favour, which brands they're going to want to buy from. And so quite importantly, at this trigger point moment where they come into a need state, yours needs to be the brand that they think of first, and yours needs to be the product that they think of first in product marketing, because we know that it's absolutely fundamental that the associations of need are the triggers that make them think of your brand and product. Here, where they're actually in the purchase process, where they're evaluating a purchase, it's not as useful because they've already thought of the brands and products that they favoured. During this period, they're evaluating and qualifying a decision that was made here. So you need to teach your customers to find your brand in a crowd. And in particular, it's a little bit like this story here. So could you pick out my child from a crowd of children? Now, this is a fake child because I like to protect my child's social media identity. So could you pick out your child from a crowd of children? Of course you can. Could you find mine? Well, here's a clue. Not a helpful clue. She has 2 eyes, so she looks like every other child, apart from the one-eyed children, which my child's very accident-prone. It's only a case of time. She lost her teeth very early. Okay. So what's the next clue? She's wearing a pink and purple headband. Yes, there's my child up there in the corner. Now those tiny clues, those tiny signs are very akin to the distinctive assets that we use as marketers to help people to identify and navigate visually, sonically, tonally our brands. In fact, tone of voice is a really beautiful study that's just been done by Thomas Barrett in Paris around tone of voice. Tone of voice is a really helpful indicator. Actually, consistent language style is a really helpful way of also adding to the impact of a brand. Unexpectedly, really a savage piece of research, actually. But distinctive assets, in this example, HSBC, which is a brand I've worked on, what you can see is that the use of things like the bow tie, colour cues, the font, different photographic styles, they all tie together to improve the recognisability of the brand. And having discipline around this across every single touch point, including how it appears on your phone, is absolutely key to how we make sure that we get those sales in those key moments that matter. So what we need to be is distinctive, we need to link our messages, and we need to reach and remind for consistency. In our research here with Distinctive BAT, what you can see is that all of the elements of recognisability of your brand actually work together, but one of the key things is disruption within the category, whether that's colour disruption, whether that's actually, if you understand your category norms, you understand how to disrupt your category. So finding those elements that you can use to be more distinctive and therefore more disruptive. And the key in that is making sure that you reduce the levels of misattribution. If you're a smaller brand in the category, it's more likely that you will be mistaken for a bigger brand in the category. We could see from the research, again with the Ehrenberg Bass Institute that we've done, that this happens to a frightening extent. In fact, in some cases, the level of misattribution and attribution to a category leader is greater than the advertising that we're seeing some brands benefit from because of bad branding, because of brand cues not being picked up. But where we're consistent with brand cues and brand icons, as you can see here from Amazon, Google, Microsoft, what we can see is the levels of attribution are significantly stronger, and sticking with those cues, sticking with those distinctive assets really pays off. So much so that some marketers are being measured on the improved quality of attribution, which is another new fun measure to be rewarded on, hopefully. On portfolio, we also need to have enough products to be able to cover the category needs, but also still be planning for future needs coming in. And in particular, we want to create a balance where we don't have too many, Oreo maybe has a lot, but also not too few. Now, this is obviously really important when we're looking at trade relationships, but it's really, really important in things like B2B, where we're trying to help people navigate the category and consistently be where we're useful, but also more prominent. Now, understanding how that works means using things like the W framework from the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, where we can see that we're using navigation by need state. So the who, what, why, when, how questions of life in relation to your category. This is a great way of connecting your product and your product portfolio to how it's needed and why it's needed. And it's really important because a lot of the time people can get lost in the technicalities of product and we start to compete against product parity. But distinguishing your brand against need states actually gives you a higher level of preference and higher level of conversion. Now, when we do this research, we do it across different category entry points, and in particular, we'll look at which category associations are most linked to different need states across for your company or for your brand versus other brands, so that you can see how you sit in that hierarchy of the day one list. But it also means that we need to think about how we position ourselves within our own companies and how we order our segmentation. Now, the wonderful Carl Linnaeus did a really amazing job for all of us in converting all of nature into Latin and into an ordered segmentation and understanding of how different species relate to each other. Really thinking about how we do that with our own brands is key, and I'm going to come on to how we do that to help navigation for LLMs, because it's absolutely the key to how they are starting to understand our category environments and how to navigate our categories better. But it also means that you then benefit from assumptions within the minds of a customer. If you do this thing and this thing, they assume that you do the things in between the two. It's called an umbrella strategy. Click. What we do as LinkedIn is that we survey category associations and product associations against audience and against the first to mind rating. And that's really useful because if we understand situational awareness and mental availability, we can also start to measure the improvement of mental availability for our brands as a marker of the good stuff that brand is doing. Now, when we look at prominence, we need to be easy to find in sales for environments. Now, the question is, do we rent or do we own our prominence? And thinking about events, do you turn up to someone else's event and present there, or do you organize your own events? Now, if you want to influence more buying journeys, you want to build your own prominence. And this work that actually I did with magic numbers into cybersecurity and telco shows where the prominence of brand first thinking starts to really pay off. If people think of your category or have a need state within your category and think of your brand first, you don't have to pay so much in, for example, search, because the biggest search engine in the world is the brain of your customer. It's the most useful one because that decides whether the search engine or the LLM has got the journey right. That's called an availability heuristic. So LLMs and geo-platforms tend to favor brands with really strong and recognizable signals. And we're going to talk a little bit, if we've got time at the end, about how we navigate that. So what we should be doing is measuring brand words and branded search against the cost to buy branded words, to buy keywords and search information. Because if we are able to show as marketers that we've created that preference in the minds of customers, that they think of us so much first, that they are searching for us and engaging with us in that way, we're starting to lead the easy to find journey ourselves. We're starting to take control as a brand. And that's really important because it not only saves us a lot of money in having to buy prominence, but it also gives preference in the minds of the customer, and preference so much so that it can influence up to 40% of the pricing that we then get from those purchases, which, as you all know, because you're very clever, is how we make the most money. Now, connecting our measurement systems in marketing and sales and delivery means we can actually start to track the mind to the find. So we're actually starting to be able to show, this is where I'm using Sales Navigator for some of these examples, and our own hiring outcomes on LinkedIn, to be able to show the power that the brand, and in particular product teams within the brand teams, are able to, we place product within brand, so that's probably a clue as to how LinkedIn markets. But you can see what we're able to then show, and this is across a wealth of our customers actually, improvements in things like lead generation completion rates, in-mail acceptance rates, and even recruiter response rates. All of these are not just benefits the company, more sales, more growth, more economic power, but also it shows a sort of a level of resilience that's being created by marketing in the long term. Now, how do we do product marketing to LLMs? And this is the controversial bit. So I find that this is controversial because when I sit in industry forums talking about product marketing and LLMs, what we see is that there is a little bit of distaste, that a lot of the sort of big thinkers in the industry feel like hacking LLMs, or not hacking, don't hack into an LLM, they're huge, they'll hurt you. But if actually working out how to create favorability for your brands in LLMs is kind of cheating the game. Now, I don't think it's cheating the game. I think it's sensible marketing. If we have a new format, a new tool within marketing, a new way that our customers discover us, it's our job. That's why it's becoming a hygiene factor. It's our job to work out what's best practice and how to do it well. So I wanted to share with you some of our thinking around that. Now, why is it important? It's important because the economic impact of AI is massive, into the many trillions. It's also because a lot of business leaders are expecting us to see it, and don't worry, everyone in marketing got the memo. Marketing has to make sure the whole company gets good at AI. Why? Obviously, because marketing had enough to do. Gartner, in particular, is saying there's going to be a 50% decline in organic traffic because of AI-driven experiences. And Forrester is saying that about 95% of B2B buyers plan to use Gen AI in at least one area of a future purchase. So it's something we can't ignore. And it's, I would say, anyone disagree with the fact that we shouldn't ignore it? Fine. So 95% to me suggests we can't really ignore it. So preparing ourselves for it, I think, is going to change a few things. It's going to change how we market, and it's going to change how buyers behave. Now, AI tools are actually shaping how buyers start to discover all of the brands that we're buying from, and it's also how they research and they select products. But a human mind still tells them what to do. And a human mind assesses whether the AI or whether the LLM has done a good job. And that means making sure that you are mentally present, easy to mind, becomes even more important. It means that your category associations that you're building in the minds of your future buyers and customers becomes even more important, because that customer is going to decide whether the LLM has discovered them right or wrong. And the LLMs will start to learn what a good answer looks like versus a bad answer. But we can also see that it's increasingly used for product information and recommendations. And we can also see that marketers are facing a lot of challenges in visibility. So is it the funnel disruptor, or is it a stage we're all going through like teenagers in the sort of Gen AI world? Or is it a bit of a fad? Is it like NFTs all over again? I don't really think so. Or are we experiencing a bunch of growing pains? Well, what we can see, the chart on the left is from Bain, the one on the right is from us. What we can see is that the core principles remain. If anyone who, even if we're arguing that the funnel has been disruptive, we still have to recognize that there still is theoretically a funnel. There is a process that people mentally are going through, and we need to recognize the importance of buyability, that mental awareness, that high, easy-to-mindness. But we also need to start to have a sort of a mindset and an AI integration into our brand and our product visibility within LLMs. That means we need to be appearing in all the right places. We need to be signaling our relevance in buyer journeys. Things like FAQs, which were the last thing we used to fill in a website, are about to become the first thing that we've got to update and be better at navigating. Really understanding and providing lots of actionable information for our brands across multiple touch points is becoming important. There's no better person than product marketing to be able to know that insight, to be able to bring those insights to life. We need to ensure top-of-mind relevance and recency, even if that's just changing the date on your update or putting a date on your latest update. That's absolutely key. And we need to be able to measure this and optimize, not just to defend our brands, but to profend our brands. And the controversial part is we may need to correct information glitches or unfair reviews or areas where people have kind of gone off into the cycle. Now, we think LinkedIn has a really important role in this because people turn up as themselves, or at least their best selves, on LinkedIn. And that means that they're accountable for what they say on LinkedIn. When they give a review or a point of view or a comment about something, it's not just a throwaway comment, it's something that they've put in a lot of thought into and often feel quite self-conscious about because their boss is also on LinkedIn, their former boss is on LinkedIn, all their past colleagues are also on LinkedIn. As far as peer review goes, it's a relatively stressful place, I will recognise to all of you to be, but it's also a very generous place where people show up and give really good quality advice because of that accountability. We want to empower marketers to be able to do that better, but we need to help them to do that. And the strategic priorities that we have as marketers is making sure that we've got content that is discoverable and valuable to AI systems. We want to align all of our teams for the consistency and universal presence. That means it actually isn't just marketing's job. It's marketing, it's comms, it's PR, it's product, it's sales. It's everyone with a touch point into our customers' universe. Because that consistency of message is also then going to help navigation and discoverability. We need to invest in the kind of analytics that understand and capture the full buyer journey, and that includes the AI touchpoints and how we are appearing on them. So we need to be evaluating that presence, and we need to create a culture of experimentation because we are all writing this as we go. We're all writing the book as we go. So our best practice that we want to share with you from LinkedIn is things like this cross-functional collaboration and really bringing in PR, editorial, web marketing, PMM, everyone across the system. Onboarding new measurement platforms. We've onboarded a new measurement platform and using different areas that, and starting to use and evaluate how different LLMs talk to each other. We need to be cycling what we learn, but we also need to be evaluating what we learn. I think one of the biggest superpowers we have right now is to question the quality of sources that the LLMs are using to discover their information. There is a huge amount of BS out there. I don't mean bullshit, and I'm not scared to say bullshit, but I mean bad sources. Bad source material will only make the LLMs come up with bad information back to customers or back to all of us. And so really questioning and evaluation of sources is absolutely key. Are these people anonymous? Are these people, who's put their name to the source material? Where has it come from? How is it qualified? What is the data that we're all being fed by an LLM? We've activated an external intelligence network, so we just don't believe our own sources, we actually go externally, and we've involved our content infrastructure to ensure navigation. This comes to really, really basic stuff like labeling our pictures so that they actually are an information source in their own right, or making sure that we are creating a much more sort of streamlined navigation framework to understand our products and services. So what do we need to do? Our 4 tips, as I conclude, and I've run over, sorry darling, are maximising customer access, making sure that we establish a distinct and amplify our distinctive brand assets, and we align with our category entry points, that we rebalance towards owned prominence for long-term sustainable growth, and we need to declutter and focus our message framework to maximise ROI on the hero information. Thank you so much for your time. Here is the QR code for the study, but also if you have any questions, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'd be very happy to answer them. Bless you all, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and festivalmas, wintermas.
Like this video? We've got loads more on demand. To access all previous event recordings, become a member. When you join, you also get access to more resources, templates, and inspiration from other leaders and PMMs. If you do want to catch us live, though, why not join us at our next event? Simply head to the link in the description to see where we're headed. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.